To start
2022.
again for the second or the third time, a warm welcome, and I start right away talking about snails and slugs. But Sylvia is also an expert about snails. Where to place the mollusks? I start with some dull slides, so it's also important to know where to place the mollusks in the animal kingdom in the whole world. You know, there are a lot of species on the whole world, not only on Seba. And as you see, there are a lot of mammals, a lot of reptiles, a lot of fishes, and the most amount of species are in the group of the insects. But the mollusks, the snails and the slugs, are part of the mollusks are the second best. And we think 85,000 species are all around the world, not so much on Seba, but well, I want to show this because nobody knows that there are so many mollusks on the world. If you want to have a classification of the mollusks, there are a lot of groups. We are going to show only the gastropods, the snails and the slugs. But do you know that squids also are mollusks? Yes, yeah, you know? No, I didn't. You didn't. Squids are also mollusks. They have also, mostly they have a shell. And maybe, yeah, you know who knows what is the big squid on the world? Biggest. How big is it? The biggest squid.
Humboldt squid.
And how big?
55 meters.
55 meters. 16, 15, 16, 17 meters. But that's very big. But they don't live here. But it's not it's a mollusk, but it's not a snail. How many species live in Seba? Seba is not a big island, I can say that. But still, in the sea, we know that there are 146 or maybe 147 or 48 species which are published. But probably there are more than 200, 300 species. How many?
Maybe I think 800.
800, maybe 800 species, but we don't know. Still, in fresh water, maybe two. We hope three, but we found two. And on land, 28. But I can say that we have found more species during our stay in Seba. Thank you. Mollusks live in sea, but I'm not going to talk about the seashells. Beautiful seashells. Maybe next year, Lynn, maybe next year, somebody is going to tell something about the seashells. But they live also in fresh water, and there is a lot of fresh water on Seba, the Seba Lake and the Seba Lake and the Seba Lake. So, but still, there is a lot of fresh water. Can you mention where you can find fresh water?
In Debbie's garden.
In her garden, in the swimming pool. I'm sorry, in your pool. Where? Seba Lake, yes.
Cisterns.
Cisterns, yes. What else?
Bromelias.
Bromelias, yes. But does there live snails in bromelias?
Yes.
Yes? What do you think? Yes. There is somebody in the audience who knows, but yes, they live also in bromelias. Yes, we found out this year. And of course, on land. Those are two marine shells I want to show you. Everybody knows the conch shell, isn't it? But the one, the Centritis, I don't know how you pronounce it. But it's also a marine shell. You can find it often at the coast, but it's not living in the water. But it is not a land snail. It needs a little bit of seawater, a little bit of drops every day, and then he can survive. He can survive a couple of months without the water, and then in the sun, but it is a seashell. So there are many species which are in between. It's the seashell, it's the land shell, it's a freshwater shell. It isn't a freshwater snail, sorry. But when it is raining, it's not going to die. So it's also a freshwater snail. But we're not talking about those difficult animals. I want to start with the gastropoda. Gaster is belly, and they are calling like because they don't have legs. They walk on their belly. Every snail is going via the belly from A to B. There are freshwater snails. I told you already. There are terrestrial snails. This is an example. But first, I want to tell you something about the shape of shells. So now we know there are, well, more than 20 shells, maybe more than 30 shells on Seba, but how do they look? Some shells are right coiled, and some shells are left coiled. Do you understand what I mean? Oh, I'm glad, because it's very difficult to explain. So you know it, what I mean? Because shell, it's not, or like this or like that, but there are also shells which haven't a coil. It's only one nap. And we haven't found it yet on Seba, but I found it on St. Martin.
So, does the fact that it's right coil or left coil influence how the shell goes in terms of direction? Does the fact that it's right coil or left coil influence the direction that the snail moves in?
The question is if it is important if it is left or right coiled, how it moves. No, doesn't matter. It is, but it is, no. Good question. Also, you can recognize the shells on the surface. Sometimes it's very smooth, sometimes it has grow lines or ribs, sometimes there is some music, that's how it works. And then we have to dance with the music. But every shell has its own characteristics. About the animal, yeah, you see here a snail with a house, and you see a slug, and the slug has no house, or no shell, or not, or yes. What is your opinion?
I see slug.
You see slugs, yeah? There are a lot of slugs now.
And there's some small shells.
I was here 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. There were not so many slugs, and now we see everywhere slugs. Yeah, but has a slug a shell?
Yes,
I think so.
inside, no? Do they not have
Yes.
like a hidden-
Yes, exactly. If you believe in the evolution, it has a shell, but it hasn't. In the evolution, it disappeared. It is a small, like a small pebble inside of the body, and it has nothing to do with there's no use anymore. But the shell, what is the meaning? Why has a snail a shell? What's the purpose of the shell? Yes, protection. But how do the slug protect himself?
Color? Closes the door.
I'm sorry?
It moves inside and it closes the door.
No, I mean the slug. With
Or the slug.
the slug. How does
Color?
Bad slime.
Slime.
it has more slime than the snails with the shell? That's true. If you have somebody touch him and put him on their hand,
And the slime.
that's terrible. Yeah. But I talk about it later because it's also very healthy. Where does the snails live? Of course, in the soil. I'm telling you something about it later. They need a lot of moist. Vegetation is important because they like the sun, but if they are too, they like to just, well, they dry out when they are too long in the sun. There are a lot of snails in gardens, and you can find them on the stones, on the leaves. They always look for shelter, but the soil is very important. Seba, as you know, is a volcanic island, and if you compare it with St. Martin, in St. Martin is a lot of limestone, a lot of old coral is coming up there. So you find a lot of more species and a lot of in the mount, a lot of snails, and the snails here are very rare. because of the lack of lime. And why do they need lime?
Make the shell.
To make the shell, yeah. But there is not so much lime, and there are still a lot of shells here.
A lot of snails in my garden.
Yeah, how come? They find a little bit of calcium, a little bit of lime in the plants, or they can find it. And some snails, not all the shells are made of lime, also of phosphor and of phosphate, and more of minerals. It's not only limestone. There's not only calcium. I'm going to say something about lifestyle, reproduction, food, part of the ecosystem. Reproduction. Yes, everybody knows that the most species of the snails are hermaphrodite. You know that, they are male and female in one snail, in one person, in one species. But sometimes it's not. So it's depending on the species, if they have separate sexes or they are hermaphrodite. And it's really true that not every species has its own habits, but they have they can dance. We can dance too. I have to wait for the music, but snails are not so quick, but they really can dance. And I have a picture. I'm sorry, I don't have a movie, but I can show you later. And I'm going to talk something about a love arrow. You all know how Cupid, you know who Cupid is? And the little fellow who shoots an arrow in the heart of the one he wants to love, or something like that. And always, when it goes into the heart, they can come. Then you have a partner. I don't know for how long, but snails. I'm sorry, snails. They do it too. Snails do it too. If you look at this this excited snail, you see here the love arrow. Another one has shot it in the body. There is some hormones on the arrow, and then the snail gets warm. How do you get excited? Thank you very much. Yeah, it's the same as people. So the question is, was it first the snail or was it Cupid? I think it was the snail because they are millions of years old. So Cupid has seen it from the snails and made a beautiful story and took it away from the snails. So I want to present now the snails as the winner of the Cupid arrow. And here are some examples of how every species has another arrow. And here you see the two snails dancing. Use your imagination. They are crawling around each other and then they come together and then they do all kinds of stuff I'm not talking about further. And then they lay eggs. And those are the eggs of the slug. They are very big, not so big as you see, but they are 2 millimeters big. And those those eggs are from the freshwater snails, the Planobella durii. And if you look very careful, you can see here already the shell which is in the egg. So they are born with a shell when they are born. Very small shell. And what do they eat? This is an important slide. They eat dead plants, algae, minerals of course, dead animals, and sometimes plants. What you see is a stone, and one snail has eaten from the algae, and so you can see hoe zeg je dat? The traces of the teeth, because a snail, how many teeth do we have? 36? 32? And when we are born, no? Yes, exactly. 0 and then 20 and then 32. A snail has, we have to count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 20, 30, 40, 100, thousands of teeth. Those are the teeth of the snails. This is this is a jaw, and this is the radula or rasp tongue, and then they can eat everything. They are very good in eating. The role in ecosystem is that they are composters. That's the most important role of the snails. They are very important in the ecosystem. They can eat everything, and what they poop is very important for the soil and for the plants. But there are also food for birds and other animals. And the empty shells give shelter. You see, of course, the soldier crabs, but there are a lot of animals which use the empty shells of the terrestrial snails. Can you give an example? Sometimes they are very small, the shells. Bees, spiders, all kinds of small millipods, centipedes, all kinds of small animals. They take shelter of the shells. So if you see shell and you think, oh, you throw it away, or no, it may be a house for some other animal. And yeah, medicine. I'm talking. Yeah, what was about the medicine? I'm forgotten. Lynn.
It's medicine for memory.
Medicine for memory. Yeah, maybe. Yes.
Just
Well,
not do skin repair or whatever?
yes, exactly. There are some snails. They use the slime and they put it in a pot and sell it for a lot of money. And some people, I did it too. And then it's very good for the wrinkles, anti-wrinkles. What is the English?
For the skin.
Wrinkles.
Wrinkles. It's very good. It's the best way to put the slime of a snail on your skin or on your face, and the rimples will disappear immediately. But you have to go to the shop to buy it.
You are 105 years old.
I'm 205 years old. Thank you very much. We are going to tell you, and I have to be a little bit faster, a little bit rapido. About the snails, we have seen the last 2 weeks, the striped drop. It's the most beautiful snail of Seba. You can find it on leaves. It has different colors. I'm not going to tell much more about it because then I am standing after an hour again. So I think it must be the national snail of Seba. This is the Cuban garden snail. It's from Cuba, of course. And yeah, I think it's a beautiful snail. It's a beautiful house. It has a beautiful house, but it likes plants. It doesn't. It eats everything. But if you have this one in the garden, one or two, okay. But if you have more, maybe your lettuce will disappear in an evening. At the left, you see at the right. I'm sorry. This is a young snail. It's the same species. So you see how small he is. This is. Oh, I didn't clean my nails. I'm sorry, but I see it now. Terrible. But it's very small, but it looks the same. They don't have a larval stadium. They grow and go and stay the same. This is the miniature old snail. It's very common. And this snail is not original from Seba, but it's a South American species. And you can see everywhere you can find it. So I want to ask you tomorrow, go and find those snails and come to us and tell us what you have found. Yes, is that the deal?
Yeah.
All right, nobody says yes. This is also an old snail, looks alike, but if you look at this species, you see the body is yellow and he is a little bit bigger than this one, and his body is white. So you can see what difference, how that is a different species. This is also a species which looks like a little bit like this one, but the whorls are less. If you see the whorls are different. And it's not a yellow animal, but it's a little bit orange. This is a native species. It's original from Seba. This is a species, the picture is not so good, very small. You can see it's 6 millimeters. You can't find it on the floor. But this is from Africa. And this species eats dead animals. It's not a vegetarian. Yes?
Did you find all these snails on Seba?
Yes. 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 We're talking about the snails of Seba. Yes.
So if the snail is from Africa, which is pretty far away,
Yes.
how did it get here?
Yes, that's a good question. Next question. Oh, the question is, how does the snail from Africa come to Seba? Trade people. And it's I know that the snail is already 56 years here. So it's in the ancient times stuff from Africa to America, from America to Florida, from Florida to St. Martin, and from St. Martin to Seba, I think.
That's why it's called the tropical trap.
Yes, yes, of course. Yes, yes, true. But it doesn't hurt much because it's very small and a rare species. This is the smooth streptaxis, also a very small one. This is the young one, and it has a normal shell. But if you look carefully here, the first whorls are, well, what is normal, what is abnormal, but this is a little bit pushed down. But that's for the snail, he likes it probably. So if you see it in this state, then in this shape, then it's round, and here it's not round. But the living animal is beautiful, also yellow, with a little bit of orange. And every snail has a different pattern, have a different pattern. Like people, they have also a different pattern. The West Indian Bulimilus, quite common, but more in gardens. And Bulimilus guadeloupensis is the name, of course. You can see that, but he is not coming from Guadeloupe. So we don't know why somebody gave the name, but maybe something went wrong in the ancient times. And you can find it in gardens, and it has a white shell, but sometimes it has beautiful dark colors. This is a rare species, the same family as the other one, and we still have no name. And 2 years ago, I also had no name for it, and still there's no name. So we are working on it to find out what species this is. And well, of course, the snails are everywhere on the island. They are very high somewhere, some species, and there is really a very rare species on Saba which lives only in the elfin forest, and that's the Amphibulina patula, Amphibulima. And this is not a small species, it's about 10-20 millimeters long, but the shell is very small. He cannot go into his shell. So he can't protect himself for dry out. So he has to live in a very moist environment. So that's why it lives in the elfin forest. It doesn't live on the top. It doesn't live at the bottom of the mountain, of the mountain scenery, but it lives there. But it lives also on other islands. But Mr. Boeken found 12 years ago one snail, and later nobody found one, and we found two of them. So they are not, they're still on the island. And well, it's very sad, but we have to offer one to the science to find out if what kind of DNA is in the snail. And then we can know what kind of species it really is. And maybe it's a species from Seba. So we tell it next year.
May I ask a question about that one? Is this an aphrodisiac snail, or does it need to use its love arrow?
The question is, of this snail uses a love arrow. It's an amphibiolimus.
Nee,
No,
alleen
no,
hele zullen.
no.
So it can reproduce still.
Yes, yes. But also the tiny snails, the very tiny snails, they live on the floor, on the ground. And this is a litter dwelling species. It's less than 3 millimeters high. And this is an adult shell. And you can see how beautiful he is. I mean, this is the aperture, but we call it the mouth. And you see here the lamella, but we call it teeth. So we all call it like we are human. But this species is quite rare on the island. But we found out, well, we know that there are 3 species. So, and it's very difficult to yeah,
Distinguish.
hoe zeg je dat? Om het
To separate
to
them.
separate them. I think it's a beautiful snail, but in my heart I hate it because it's so difficult to give a name to it. Those are also very interesting species, also very small, and we call them blind snails. And you can see they are 3, 5 millimeters or 1, 2 in broad. They live underground, so they don't need ice. And probably nobody of you have ever seen it. And if we are looking for it, well, we found, I think, 6 shells in 2 weeks, and that's a lot. So we are very proud, but we like those snails. They also have a very important role. I don't know which role, because they live underground, but probably they ate the fungus, the mycelium of the fungus. Then we go to the freshwater snails. There are 2 species we know. This is a right cold. Oh, this is a right cold one, and this is a left cold one, and they live in all kinds of cisterns in the pools near the Eco Lodge, at Jobim in the pond. Yes, you have them also. Debbie and Terry has some in the pond, and you can see that there are no eyes on the tentacles, but I'm sorry, but you can't see the eye. It's somewhere here. It's on the body, and the most terrestrial snails has the eyes on the tentacle. Well, the slugs, I told already that it has a house. It's an invasive species. I don't think we have to be glad, but I like them, but they are here and we have to deal with them. Sometimes we have to deal with a lot of stuff. And I hope you, when you see him, yeah, give it to the chickens or something like that. You can eat them also, yeah? If you can't beat them, eat them. But it's rather slimy. Thank you very much. Oh, are there some questions? Because I give now the phone to Sylvia. No questions? Yes?
How long do they live on average?
Well, how smaller they are, how less long they live. The smaller one, 1 year. But the Sagrisia, the big Cuban snail, can live for 3 years, 4 years. Yeah.
And then, so what happened to the shell when they die? Because when they're born, they already have the shell, and if they go with the shell.
Yeah, the shell stays, but because there's a lot of acid soil on the island, it dissolves. Yeah, or sometimes other snails eat the shell for their own shell. Yes.
So do they make a shell and then shed it as they grow, or
Yes.
they shed?
Yeah, the shell is growing with the animal.
So it grows, so they keep the
Yes.
same shell and they just add.
Yes.
They don't get rid of it.
No, it's stick with the muscle on the animal. Yes. Thank you very much. One point, I've got some living snails in that jar there. So if you want to see them, if you're not afraid, later you can look at the living ones. I give now the phone to Sylvia. And now we see a lot of text.
Ja,
Alsjeblieft.
even kijken. Yeah, my name is Sylvia. I'm a citizen scientist for snails and shells. But 2 years ago, I participated in a type of critter quest on Bonaire, and there we find this worm. And I took a picture, and I looked for the automatic photo recognition, and they said it's New Guinea flatworm. So I thought, well, that's strange, a New Guinea flatworm on Bonaire, how does it come there? And I sent an email to a specialist from Naturalis who knows everything of the flatworms. And she said, oh, that's very bad news because this flatworm can do a lot of harm to other snails that he eats and also to human health. So that was the reason that I started to get more knowledge about the flatworm. And I also asked people from different Caribbean islands to have a look for these flatworms. And during the last years, we start to know more and more. And I will, this week we also looked not only for snails but also for flatworms, and we found already several species. And also this bad guy is available, living on Seba. I will come back to this subject later on, but that's the reason why we study flatworms. First, what is a land flatworm? It looks a bit like a slug, but the slug has tentacles on the eyes, on the head. And a land flatworm doesn't have tentacles. That's the most obvious way to separate them. The earthworm, it has all kinds of segments, rings around the body, and an earthworm is a very useful animal because it keeps the soil open and fertile. The flatworm is completely smooth, but they often have stripes on the body. This one does not have, but most of them have. And when they move, a rainworm, earthworm is going like this, and the flatworm goes very slow and then you really see him moving and he glides over his slime. Um, Flatworms are predators of small soil fauna. They eat everything they can get, but each species has a different preference. Some like to eat earthworms, and others prefer to eat snails. You see here a flatworm attacking a snail, here a flatworm attacking a rainworm, an earthworm. And the way they feed is very special. You see a very small white tube here. They put it outside. It's the esophagus, pharynx is it named. They put an enzyme in the slug or in the snail, and then it dissolves, and they can drink the contents of the snail or the worm. They are top predators. There's no other species known who eats the flatworms. Maybe there are species who like them, but so far it's never observed that they are eaten by any other species. Like the snails, they are hermaphrodites, so they have male and female sex organ in one worm, in one individual, but they still can mate and produce eggs, and from the eggs the baby worms come. But they also have a very curious asexual reproduction. You need just one worm to get a lot of worms. If you cut them in two, or they do that themselves, then both parts can regrow to a full worm. So they split up, and the head makes a new tail, and the tail makes a new head. Oh, what happens? So they can regenerate lost body parts. And this happens in nature. It's not because people cut them in two, but they do that themselves. Um, and scientists did some experiments to find out how they can regenerate. And here you see a figure about that test. They cut a flatworm in three parts, the head, the middle, and the tail. And they observed how they develop. And the head make a new body and grew out to a full flatworm. The middle part make a new head and a new tail and grew out to a complete worm again. And the tail regenerated the head and the middle part and also became a full worm. So whatever you do, if you cut them in parts, you will get more worms. They will. I don't know exactly, but not very long. Some days or maybe a week. Yeah, yeah. So that's a very strange characteristics of flatworm. And then they had another experiment. They make longitudinal incisions in the head, to see what happened if they do that. And this was the result. A monster with 3 regenerated complete heads.
Blijft een raar verhaal, hè?
Yeah.
Are there, Sylvia, are there other animals known that do that as well?
Lizards can, when they are in danger, they can throw off their tail and then they can regrow the tail. But if you cut the head off, they will die. So it's, I don't know any other species that group that's able to do it. Sorry?
Only the part with the head.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't think that the tail makes a new head. Yeah, so it's really wonderful. They are mainly active at dusk and dawn because they are very, very vulnerable to dry out. They consist of mainly water, and they need protection against the sun. So in the daytime, they are often under plant pots, under stones, under pieces of wood. To hide again and to prevent them from drying out, and you find them mainly on places where the soil is a bit moist. They are worldwide distributed, and some species are super widely distributed, and mainly via the pot trade, because they live in the earth and can stay there for a long time without any food. Months, they can survive months without food. And also the eggs are buried in the soil. So when you export a plant with an egg capsule in it or with a worm in it, oh, it can wait for better times and then pop up again on a new locality. At the same time, they are very fragile. When they are not happy to dry or too wet, they can't swim in water. Too warm or too cold, they just disappear and only some slime remains. This is a film made by Umro, who's here. He observed a strange animal in his garden last year, and he made a very nice video that I want to show. Oh, now it stops again. This flatworm, you see him gliding over the stones, and he has a very wide, flat head. This is called a hammerhead flatworm. Not all flatworms have a head like this. Most have a pointed head, but this one has a hammerhead.
This is a nice one.
It's a very beautiful one. This one is eating earthworms.
Yeah.
Thanks to Mr. Umro. Yeah?
They're very damaging, aren't they?
Well, they are damaging because they eat earthworms, and earthworms are very useful in a garden to keep the soil in a good condition. And when they catch all the earthworms, the soil will become less fertile, and in agricultural areas, the crop will diminish. So it's not a lucky thing to have in your garden. But it's beautiful to see. There are many species of flatworms in the world, and on Seba we found 5 species, I think, so far this week. We don't have names for all the species, but these are some characteristics where you have to look at to distinguish them. First one is very important, the body color. The upper side here is dark and the underside is white. Sometimes it's the same color up and down under. The form of the head, the stripes on the color lines on the body. Also important is the eye pattern. Some worms have 2 eyes in front on the head. Other worms don't have that, but they have eyes on the side, like here. The length may vary from 2 to 20 centimeters. And there are, of course, also anatomical features to study to identify the worms and find out what lives here. Here you see the land flatworms that we traced on Seba last week, and also a little bit earlier via observation.org and iNaturalist. We are very happy when people observe a flatworm that they report it on these platforms, because they are very hard to find. So far in our 1.5 week we found 4 worms, and today we were lucky, we found 3 other ones on the cemetery of the level, no, the bottom. Yeah? Are you Macbeth? Oh, we didn't know who. No, thank you very much. Because reporting findings on these platforms is very helpful for us to get a good view of where they live and which species live there.
You found it in your garden?
So, okay, wow, great to hear.
Karma.
And then I want to highlight a bit more about the New Guinea flatworm, because it's a dangerous one. It is on the top 100 of the most invasive worst species of the world. And that is the reason that many governments take action to prevent them from entering their country. But in Seba it already happened. And also until now we found it on 4 of the 6 Dutch Caribbean islands. After Bonaire we also found it on Sint Maarten, on Curaçao and the Dutch part of Sint Maarten. And it was already reported on Seba in 2020, the first one. You can recognize it to the size. It's 4 to 5 centimeters long. That's not so long. The other species are much longer that we found here, most of them. They are quite wide, have a flat body. The upper side is dark brown and a very light one line on the middle of the back. But when you turn it around, it's whitish cream. And it has a pointed head, so no hammerhead, but just a pointed head. Why it's so bad? The introduction of the New Guinea flatworm happened in the 60s on some Pacific islands. There they had problems with the giant African snail that destroyed the agricultural crop. And they heard that the flatworm is an enemy of the snails, so they thought it would be a good idea to introduce that worms. Well, the worms ate the giant African snail, but when they were gone, they started to eat all the endemic snails and they died out. So that was a big ecological disaster. Later, about 10 years ago, it was introduced by accident in Florida. And there live special endemic tree snails, and they are disappearing in a very high tempo now. So it's very hard to destroy all the worms and find them because they live so hidden. So it's also bad news for the endemic snails of the Dutch Caribbean islands that this worm is spreading through the Dutch Caribbean too. And I'm afraid that Aruba and Stasia will follow soon when there's no good control of the import of potted plants. Because that's most likely the way they arrive here. And in Florida, they were detected in an area where the pot plant growers are settled, and they export plants to all Caribbean islands. So when they are infected with the worms, the risk is large that they come here when you import potted plants. It's also bad news for human health because they can be the host for the red lungworm. It's a very, very small worm. You can see it with the bare eye, but it lives inside the worm. And when it comes into humans, you get meningitis. It's an infection of the brain that can be very dangerous. So our advice is when you see that particular flatworm, never touch it with bare hands. But yeah, try to destroy it, but not by cutting it in parts. Then you get even more worms. But put it in an alcohol.
In what?
Alcohol.
Destroy it, put it in what?
Yeah, if you cut it, it will not die, but you get two of them or three of them. And if you crush it with your feet, I'm afraid that it will also generate more worms. So the most safe way is use gloves or use a stick to get it and put it in a bar of alcohol or spirit. Then it will die very soon. Do you understand? I can't understand, sorry.
Their mouth is in the middle of the body,
Yeah.
and then the neurotoxic, the hammerheads.
I do not know if there are toxics that are working for this worm and not for other species that you want to keep.
Okay, no, because I looked it up for hammerheads, and
Yeah.
that's what I found out.
That you do
That's what
it?
I found out about the hammerheads.
Yeah.
That their mouth is in the middle of the body,
Yeah.
and they're neurotoxic.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. But they can regenerate everything that you cut off. So the best thing and the most safe is put it in alcohol, then it will die. And because it's such a dangerous animal, don't like killing animals. But in this case, it's better to do it when you observe it. But we were also very happy when you will report it to us via observation.org or to iNaturalist with a photo. And even better, put it in a jar with alcohol and bring it to the Critter Quest or give it to the nature organization here. They will contact Naturalis and make that it comes to us for further study. But yeah.
What would be a good way to control them? Let's say someone import plants. We don't have proper biosecurity, but what would be a good action to
Sorry?
do? So if you check plants that are being imported, what would be a good biosecurity measure? Like
Yeah.
some container they get fumigated,
Yeah.
because you can't search every plant pot for like a worm. How
Yeah.
would you prevent? Is there something we can do?
Yeah, at the moment we have a project together with Wageningen University to find out what you can do to disinfect plants in a shop to prevent from entering these worms into the country. But we are not ready yet. The project is going on. Maybe some salt water on the bottom can help. It may also help to have a table with what is it, kattegrit?
Oeh.
Oh, what you use in the toilet for cats.
Litter, cat litter.
Cat litter, because that takes all the moist, and they are not
Then they
able
die.
So
to.
Drying out.
Yeah, they dry
Yes.
and then they die very soon.
Very
So that
soon, very
might
quick.
also be an option to put the plants that you introduce, import uh, on that material and keep it very clean and dry on the soil, on the table and not on wet ground. But inspection of new containers with plants is highly advised too. And you can just lift up the pot. Mainly they sit under the plant pots. So when you lift them up and you see the worms, it's easy to find them. But it's of course takes it's extra work to check. But there are many other species also getting to the island, exotic species that you don't want to have, like iguanas, snakes, and there are more reasons to have
Frogs.
inspection of imported
Carbon tree frogs, the big one.
frogs. Yeah. So, well, it's sad news, but I think it's important to give information to the public that they know the danger of the worm. Of course, the worm itself is not dangerous, but the parasites in the worm. And we don't know if the worms here are infected, but you have to take it into account that it's a possibility. Well, thank you for your attention, and also thanks to all the persons mentioned here who reported flatworms to us. And I will invite you, whenever you see a flatworm, take a picture and send it to us. That would be very helpful for our studies. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Putting salt on the worm help kill it.
Yeah, I think salt will die, will let them die too. But we are testing it at the moment to be sure. Before we advise to do that, we have to know that it works, and that's under study at the moment. But it's one of the options that we do. Yeah?
No, it's okay. I'll ask.
No more questions?
No.
Did you ever see him in your garden? These flatworms? You did?
Yeah.
Okay. And you did? Yeah. I think they mainly live in the gardens, but we also found on Mount Scenery some of them.
No more questions? Thank you very much, Sylvia.
And Tello.
Thank you, everyone.